And you'll need to check your freezer this morning. Consumer expert Amy Davis has details of a recall on frozen steak dinners.
What if everything you believed about frozen food quality was engineered by advertising, not actual cooking expertise? Chefs who create $100 plates won't let one popular premium brand near their families. Yet they're secretly stockpiling two frozen options most people walk right past without a second glance. You know what's impressive? Eating nearly an entire day's worth of sodium in one sitting. That's exactly what happens when you crack open a Hungry Man fried chicken dinner. Over 1,500 milligrams of salt in one tray. Chefs won't touch this stuff. And honestly, once you know what's inside, you won't either. Those generous portions look great through the plastic film. Big pieces of chicken, a mountain of mashed potatoes, some gravy, and, hey, even a brownie for dessert. Sounds like a deal. But here's the thing. That chicken? Often bulked up with soy additives and mechanically separated meat. It's like they took actual chicken and gave it a bunch of roommates nobody asked for. The gravy is even sneakier. Check the ingredients sometime. Water comes first, then modified food starch. Actual meat drippings? Way down the list. That's not gravy, that's flavored glue. And those home-style mashed potatoes? Dehydrated flakes. Just add oil and artificial butter flavoring. Your grandmother would be horrified. Here's my favorite part, though. That brownie tastes exactly the same whether you get the fried chicken dinner, the turkey dinner, or the Salisbury steak. Why? Because it's mass-produced somewhere completely separate and just tossed into every box. Former line cooks have said the salt isn't there for flavor. It's there to hide the fact that without it, you'd realize how bland everything actually is. The sodium is doing all the heavy lifting, while the ingredients just coast. But Hungry Man isn't even the cheapest offender on this list. At under $3 per meal, Banquet isn't cutting corners. They're cutting entire walls. The meat in these mega bowls? USDA allows something called meat trimmings. Basically the scraps left over after actual cuts are removed. You're eating what the butcher used to throw away. But here's where it gets interesting. That orange gooey stuff in their mac and cheese bowl? Notice how it's labeled cheese sauce on the package. That's not a style choice. It's a legal requirement. The FDA won't let them call it cheese because it doesn't meet the basic definition of actual cheese. Let that sink in. The cheese isn't cheese. And the vegetables? They're cooked twice. Once before freezing, once when you microwave. The result is mush that's lost most of its nutrients. You'd get more vitamins licking a multivitamin than eating those green beans. Now, I've eaten plenty of banquet meals during my broke college years. No judgment here. But knowing what I know now? Hard pass. One mega bowl contains 3 different thickening agents just to make watery sauce look like it has substance. It's basically culinary special effects. The calorie-to-nutrition ratio tells the real story. You're getting plenty of energy, around 500 calories, but minimal protein, almost no fiber, and vitamins that barely register. Restaurant pros have a term for this: filler food. It fills your stomach without actually feeding your body. Speaking of meals that look premium but deliver disappointment, the next brand hides behind Grandma's apron. A few months ago, I had no idea what a health ring even was until my fiancé got me one, and I have to say, I'm shocked this isn't a widely known and used product. It tracks my stress levels, and what I found out is that some supplements made my stress score spike, while others actually helped bring it down. I adjusted a few things based on that, and honestly, I feel 10 years younger. My wife mainly uses it to track her menstrual cycles, and she is obsessed with her sleep quality score. I noticed they are currently running a limited 69% discount, but I don't know how long it will last. It's currently only $60, and it's clear this one is the best bang for your buck, with other health rings priced around $350 with less functions. They managed to price it this low because they cut out the middleman like Amazon, Walmart, etc., who drive up the price and take a big margin, ending up with the customer paying 3 to 5 times more. If you are on TV, you can check it out yourself by pausing the video and scanning the QR code with your phone camera or clicking the first link in the description of this video. Marie Callender's sells you a memory. That cozy packaging with the farmhouse vibes, pure marketing genius, and complete nonsense. Here's what most people don't realize. Those pot pies everyone swears taste homemade? Less than 15% actual chicken or beef by weight. I'll let that sink in. You're basically eating gravy and crust, with a few sad meat pieces floating around like they're lost. And that crust, oh, that famous flaky crust, real butter? Nope. Palm oil and hydrogenated fats. Any chef worth their salt can taste the difference immediately. It's got that waxy coating on your tongue that real butter never leaves behind. But the gravy bothers me most. What should taste like hours of slow-roasted drippings instead screams celery salt and onion powder. It's seasoning, doing heavy lifting for flavor that should come from actual cooking. Now brace yourself for this one. A single 16-ounce pot pie packs roughly 1,040 calories and 64 grams of fat. That's 2 McDonald's Quarter Pounders in one little pie. Your grandmother's pot pie never did that to you. Even their fruit pies disappoint. The apples they use? Bred for storage life, not taste. That's why they turn mealy and weird after baking. Apples should be crisp or soft, not this strange middle ground that nobody asked for. Professional cooks have a saying about Marie Callender's. It succeeds on nostalgia, not ingredients. You're paying for the feeling of Grandma's kitchen without any of the actual love. Speaking of misleading labels, the next brand built an empire on healthy eating promises. Stouffer's has been around since 1924. That's a century of frozen food experience. You'd think by now they'd have it figured out. Well, here's the problem. When the FDA finally banned artificial trans fats, Stouffer's reformulated their recipes. Good news, right? Not exactly. They swapped those trans fats for cheap cheese blends absolutely loaded with saturated fat. Your arteries didn't exactly win that trade. Their lasagna sells more than any other frozen lasagna in America. Millions trust it. But that part skim ricotta, listed on the label? It's mostly milk byproducts held together with gums and stabilizers. Real ricotta doesn't need a chemistry degree to exist. And then there's maltodextrin. Stouffer's puts this stuff in almost everything. It sounds harmless, maybe even healthy. It's not. This highly processed carbohydrate spikes your blood sugar faster than dumping a spoonful of table sugar directly into your mouth. Your pancreas is not a fan. Their home-style meatloaf is another head-scratcher. Read the ingredients closely. Oatmeal and soy protein often appear before the actual beef does. That's like calling a movie a Tom Hanks film when he shows up for 5 minutes at the end. Here's what really gets executive chefs frustrated. Stouffer's was genuinely revolutionary back in the 1970s. They basically invented the modern frozen dinner. But while competitors quietly improved their recipes over the decades, Stouffer's coasted on brand recognition. They're still selling nostalgia from 50 years ago. But speaking of selling something that isn't quite what it claims to be, the next brand markets itself as the healthy choice. Here's the thing about lean cuisine. They're not lying about the calories. The numbers are real. But the way they get there? That's where it falls apart. See, instead of using better ingredients with less fat. They just shrink everything. We're talking portions under 8 ounces. One chef I know called it appetizer food with entree expectations. You finish the tray and wonder if maybe you accidentally threw half of it away. But wait, it gets better. To make up for cutting fat, they pump these meals with sugar, sometimes high fructose corn syrup, because when you remove fat from food, it tastes like cardboard. Sugar fixes that, temporarily. And the sodium? Over 700 milligrams in some of those tiny trays. Do the math. Ounce for ounce, lean cuisine is often saltier than the unhealthy frozen dinners it's supposed to replace. That's like buying a small soda and finding out it has more sugar than the large. The chicken breast pieces have this weird spongy texture too. That's from phosphate injections. Basically, they pump water into the meat to add weight. You're paying for chicken-flavored water weight. Delicious. And those cafe steamers with the fancy 2-compartment tray? The steam cooking method was designed for speed and convenience, not flavor. Marketing made it sound gourmet. Reality made it soggy vegetables. Nutritionists point out these meals rarely keep you full for more than 2 hours. So you eat lunch at noon, and by 2 o'clock, you're raiding the vending machine. Speaking of meals targeting specific audiences, the next one might surprise you. Here's the part that might make some of you uncomfortable. Kid cuisine. Those colorful boxes with penguins and fun shapes clearly designed for children. Except sales data reveals something strange. Nearly 30% of purchases come from adults, without kids in the household. No judgment here. Okay, maybe a little judgment. Look, I get it. Sometimes you want something simple. Something that reminds you of being 10 years old with 0 responsibilities. But here's the problem. That nostalgia comes with a nutritional nightmare. Those chicken nuggets everyone loves? Less than 40% actual chicken. The rest is breading, fillers, and enough binding agents to hold together a collapsing bridge. And those fun dinosaur shapes and smiley faces? They require extra processing that degrades the meat quality even further. Regular nuggets are already questionable. These are nuggets that went through an additional identity crisis. Then there's the dessert situation. The included pudding or brownie often contains more calories than the main course itself. Your side dish is actually the main event, and not in a good way. One single kid cuisine meal can pack over 20 different artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives. 20. That's not a meal. That's a chemistry experiment you're microwaving. Pediatric nutritionists hate these things. Chefs hate them more. Because they normalize ultra-processed food as acceptable nutrition for developing bodies. And apparently, for adults who should know better. But if everything we've covered sounds depressing, don't worry. There are actually frozen meals that chefs genuinely respect. Boston Market built its reputation on rotisserie chicken that actually tasted like someone's mom made it. The restaurant became famous for fresh carved meat and sides that felt homemade. So slapping that name on a frozen meal should mean something, right? Wrong. Here's what they don't advertise. Boston Market doesn't make these frozen dinners. They license their name to Bellisio Foods, a massive frozen meal manufacturer. It's like buying a concert ticket with your favorite band's name, then showing up to find a cover band playing. The rotisserie chicken that made the restaurant famous? It turns rubbery and dry in frozen form because it gets cooked twice. Once at the factory, once in your microwave. That's not cooking. That's punishment. And those mashed potatoes everyone loved at the actual restaurant? The frozen version tastes nothing like them. Standard instant potato flakes with butter flavoring. I tried both back-to-back once, It's like comparing a photograph to the real sunset. But here's what really gets professional chefs annoyed. The ingredient lists on these meals often exceed 50 items for a single dinner. 50! Your grandmother's pot roast had maybe 8 ingredients. The gravy relies on caramel coloring to look appetizing because no actual roasting happens during production. Chefs have a term for this strategy: borrowed credibility. Take a respected restaurant name, stick it on factory food, and watch people assume they're getting restaurant quality. They're not. Now, after 7 brands that disappoint, you might think all frozen dinners are hopeless. But 2 brands actually earned chef approval. All right, here's where things get interesting. Trader Joe's isn't just a grocery store with quirky names and free coffee samples. Their frozen section is genuinely good. And I'm not the only one saying this. Professional chefs actually buy this stuff. Here's why. Most frozen brands outsource everything: recipe development, ingredient sourcing, manufacturing, all farmed out to the lowest bidder. Trader Joe's flips this completely. They develop recipes with their own culinary teams first, then find manufacturers willing to follow their exact specifications. That's a huge difference. Take their Mandarin orange chicken. It's basically a cult classic at this point. Real chicken breast pieces. No phosphate injections pumping water into the meat. No meat glue holding mystery chunks together. Just chicken that tastes like chicken. And the ingredient lists? Refreshingly short. Their butter chicken runs about 15 ingredients. Compare that to similar products from other brands pushing 40 or 50. You shouldn't need a chemistry degree to understand your dinner. But here's what really impresses chefs. Trader Joe's kills products that don't perform. Ruthlessly. If something doesn't meet their taste standards, gone. Discontinued. They'd rather have empty shelf space than sell mediocre food. When's the last time you saw a major brand admit something wasn't good enough? Their Indian and Asian options consistently win blind taste tests against competitors charging twice as much. $3 to $5 per meal for genuinely decent food. That said, there's one brand that takes things even further. Premium ingredients, ethical sourcing, and a price tag that actually makes sense for what you're getting. Now here's where things get interesting. Because Saffron Road proves premium frozen food isn't an oxymoron. This company does something almost nobody else bothers with. They use certified humane, antibiotic-free chicken, grass-fed beef, across every single entree, not just the fancy ones they put on the front of the website. Their lamb sog? Actual slow-cooked lamb shoulder, not mystery meat pressed into lamb-shaped cubes. Real shoulder. The kind you'd braise yourself if you had 4 hours and nothing better to do. And here's what separates them from pretenders. They hired a James Beard-nominated chef as culinary director. That's like hiring a Formula One engineer to design your Honda Civic. Massive overkill. But you taste the difference. The sodium situation surprised me most. 30% lower than comparable frozen meals. Yet somehow, the food doesn't taste like cardboard. How? They actually use real spices instead of salt as a flavor crutch. Revolutionary concept, apparently. Their tikka masala contains tomatoes that were slow roasted before freezing. Most brands dump in tomato paste and call it authentic. Saffron Road actually cooks. Now, the price: $6 to $8 per meal. That's steep for frozen food. I won't pretend otherwise. But here's how professional chefs frame it. This is the only frozen brand they'd serve to dinner guests without making excuses. No, sorry, I didn't have time to cook disclaimers. Just food. Worth the premium? Depends on your standards. But if you're buying frozen anyway, buying something you're not embarrassed about seems like a reasonable upgrade.